My heart is beating from me. I'm standing all alone. Please call me only if you're coming home. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are discussing Green Day's Homecoming this afternoon.
Wow.
Are you ready? Welcome. Fresh out the oven, it's Cinema Bones. I'm Emmett.
Oh, and I'm Wade.
Cinema
I was
Bones
distracted there.
is a podcast where we watch through every single movie in popular film franchises, even sometimes ones that are maybe not in the franchise, one each week to try and track how the storytelling changes over time. Today, we are continuing our mini-series, Webhead Summer, covering every Spider-Man film. We will fully spoil today's film, Spider-Man Homecoming, but we will probably try not to spoil any future entries in the series. Wade, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Emmett. Homecoming is probably my favorite song on that album.
It's such a good song.
I haven't listened to it in a while, but I do love that song. How are you doing, Emmett?
I am doing super well. I really enjoyed watching this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Annoyed that Disney bought the entirety of Marvel, but then didn't put Spider-Man on Disney Plus. That's a little, think about it, Kevin. Think about it.
I don't know if you did this too, Emmett, but I watched this on my dread enemy, the Stars app.
Oh,
where we watched Little Women, which I had forgotten about.
Oh, with the little, yes.
Until this movie started, and I saw the Stars app flashing in the bottom corner of every single second.
Oh, God, yes.
It was so horrible. And I will say, too, this movie, just to kick it off, as with all of these other Spider-Man movies, some dodgy CGI. Yes. I think maybe in this one particular, I'm not sure if Sony maybe had the time or the budget to totally push this over the line exactly as far as it needed to be. But the streaming quality on the Stars app, I think, was also making that stuff look
unkind to it.
Much worse than in another. And then if I had the Blu-ray, I'm sure it would look much better.
For sure. So what are the stats of this film, Spider-Man Homecoming 2017?
This is the fourth film in Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the 16th overall. It's the second film to star Spider-Man after, of course, last week, Captain America's Civil War. It was released July 7th, 2017 by Sony Pictures. I believe the deal here, as I understand it, is that Marvel is doing the creative decisions on the movie, and Sony is marketing and collecting the checks, basically. Sony is like bankrolling the movie, marketing the movie, getting the returns from the movie, but Marvel Studios are the ones creatively making the movie.
Okay.
That is my understanding of this specific weird deal.
That's a really interesting sort of deal.
Did you see this one in theaters the year it came out?
I don't think that I did.
July 2017?
I think the first time I saw this movie was with you in quarantine.
Oh, yes.
When you showed it to all of us at the house.
Yes, I do remember. I was actually a little, I just wasn't over the moon about watching this because I had watched it, I guess 2 years ago now, but it still felt very recent that we had all watched this together. And then watching it, I was like, oh, this is a lot of fun. This is very easily watchable.
Yeah.
This film was directed by John Watts. He had only directed 2 movies before this, a scary movie called Clown, which I had never heard of, and a little drama called Cop Car, starring Kevin Bacon. This is a pretty fun little movie. I actually had seen this before this movie, but that's really all. So this is kind of a big get for him. 3 different duos of writers on this. So a lot of hands are mixing this movie together. The first draft is credited to Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley. These two, before this, had written the Horrible Bosses movies as well as Vacation. So, like, comedy guys. They were the first choice, I believe, to direct this, and then Watts, I guess, just had a stronger pitch, is basically what I heard. That even though he wasn't as experienced, he just was very passionate about his pitch of what he wanted to do with this movie. So they went with him, but these guys ended up writing it. After this, they directed the movie Game Night, which I love, a really good movie, and they are currently directing the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Ooh.
That's supposed to come out next year. So they do the first draft. Second draft is by John Watts himself and his writing partner, Christopher Ford, who wrote Clown and Cop Car, both of them together. And then the final shooting draft is by the writing duo of Chris McKenna and Eric Summers. These guys were also working on Community with the Russo brothers, and they wrote the Lego Batman movie.
Oh, no way.
And this is the duo that is going to go on to write Far From Home and No Way Home.
Okay.
So on this one, I think they're probably doing a lot of like punch up and continuity stuff, but they're going to be like the writers for the next two.
Damn.
The score was by Michael Giacchino, who we just talked about
Right.
on Jurassic World Dominion. Really fun score on this.
Yeah, I liked it. I noticed liking it at a couple of points, which doesn't happen often.
Running 2 hours and 13 minutes, a budget of $175 million, which is the smallest for a Spider-Man movie since the 2002 original.
Wow.
This is a smaller budget than Spider-Man 2 or 3 or either of the Amazing Spider-Mans.
Wow. Damn.
But it made $878 million, which made it the sixth highest grossing film of 2017, and it was the highest grossing superhero movie. So none of the five above it were superhero movies, and it was positively received critically, especially compared to the Amazing Spider-Man movies, which got a 66 and 53 on Metacritic. This came out with a 73 positive reception at the time. Emmett, what would you like to say about the plot of this movie?
It's interesting. It's a pretty simple, straightforward plot of this guy who you see early on, played by Michael Keaton, is stealing supplies from the cleanup crews that are like cleaning up the disasters of the Avengers and like cleaning up all this alien tech and stuff like that that could possibly be used as weapons. Well, he's stealing some of it and selling it. This is bad. Spider-Man gets into a couple of little dust-ups with him, and then, it turns out, asks his daughter to the homecoming dance. Bad mistake on his part.
Well, unbeknownst to him.
Unbeknownst to him. And then he like gets to the house and he sees him. And that part, pretty awesome. Love that part a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's a very straightforward coming-of-age superhero story.
Yeah.
With the added twist that at the end, because he like kicks her dad's ass and he gets sent away to prison, the girl, Liz, who he's interested in, is moving away, never to see him again. So he like totally screws it all up as far as that goes. And it's like, I mean, he gets the suit taken away from him too. So it's kind of like the moment of really having to rely on his own wits and his own whatever he's got. And then realizing at the end too that like you can do all of that, beat the bad guy, and still like not get everything you want.
Yeah.
And I think he's like a more mature Spider-Man at the end of that for that.
And he rejects
rejects the offer.
The opportunity of to be a full-time Avenger and to get like an even more high-tech suit. He rejects the offer.
To go and still be a high school student and still do the thing that he has been doing, which is like being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, which I think is really cool. And just like in general, Tom Holland, great in this movie, really showing off like both sides of that character, like the fun Spider-Man side and like I really think that this is the one that nails it, as Peter Parker can be a boy genius and also not like a weird and creepy person. Like right. Like he is like can be a little awkward, but he can also be like a just like charming person and a boy genius at the same time, who is like doing all this crazy stuff. And it's like, of course he can fly the plane just by pulling the fin, because Peter Parker would know how to do the angles and get like all of that right. Spider-Man has the ability to do it, but it's like also it's like the physics kid who like is figuring all of that stuff out for him, which I think is really fun and plays well in this character.
Yeah, I feel like I sometimes see criticism of these movies and this movie from the people who really love the Raimi trilogy. That there is like a lack of focus on the tragedy of Spider-Man or on like the Peter Parker luck, you know, that this Spider-Man like gets the suit handed to him and things really go his way. But that is like so not the contents of this movie.
Yeah.
Like this is totally a movie where like his crush asks him to go night swimming and he has to move away. Or like the news uses a picture of him and it's him with toilet paper on his costume coming out of the porta potty. Like it is that same thing where everything is going wrong. He just has like a better sort of disposition about things.
Yeah, he's not
Tobey Maguire.
He's not Tobey Maguire. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Which is kind of what the fact that he like is always bouncing back from stuff so well is like part of what makes him a compelling and fun protagonist for this movie, where he is getting dumped on the entire time. If it was a different actor who felt sorry for himself, it would be much less fun to watch.
Yeah.
And that's like part of what makes it a comedy too, is because like he's just approaching everything like, well, this is happening now, I guess.
Yeah, and that is kind of the other difference in the take. I mean, is that it is really going for like a full-on comedy vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And it has much more of that John Hughesy high school sort of thing. You even see the clip of Ferris Bueller when they're running through.
Yeah.
That stuff. I love the scene where he goes to chase the bad guys and he shoots his web, and then he's in like the neighborhood of Queens, so there are no skyscrapers.
Oh yeah.
And he just has to run across everyone's lawn.
When he's running across the golf course, that is very fun.
That stuff is so good. And I love the comedy montage. That stuff feels very Queens, of where you see him doing like the friendly neighborhood stuff, basically.
Yeah.
He's like trying to stop a bike thief outside an old sandal store and everyone's yelling at him. I love the moment where he starts to pose heroically in front of the American flag, a la the end of the first Spider-Man.
Uh-huh.
And then Zach Cherry's on the ground and he's like, hey, you're Spider-Man, do a flip.
I love his relationship with the deli guy.
Yeah.
Well, and like there's a way to handle like the collateral damage thing that gets so overblown in Civil War in like a very realistic, like one person to one person sort of way. Like he is directly responsible for the laser that rips up his friend's shop, but then he also goes in and like saves the dude's life and saves his cat. I feel like that hits harder than the whole like Tony Stark feels sad.
Yeah, totally. I like that this is the lowest stakes of any Spider-Man movie, I would say. In terms of like other people getting hurt, you know?
Yeah.
Well, like one person dies in this movie, the first shocker, and that is like an accident.
Yeah.
Like the big plan at the end is to steal high-tech things from an unmanned airplane.
Yeah.
And even when that goes south, like the only people in danger of being hurt are the bad guy and Spider-Man. No one else, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if the plane went off course and then crashed into the city, that would be really bad. But that isn't floated so much as a direct threat.
Yeah, and that's not the plan by any means.
Yeah.
No, it's a good point. It is, and it's all about, it is that thing from the original Spider-Man of like, this villain is tied directly to Spider-Man, but not early on. And you don't realize it. It's kind of like parallel plots. And then when it hits that, oh my God, not only is he the guy, we know he's the guy, Spider-Man has like figured out who this villain is, but then to like open the door and see him face to face as your potential girlfriend's dad.
Yeah.
What? That whole scene just really gets me.
And it is like further extrapolating the whole high school movie metaphor, you know?
Yeah.
Of like the scariest person is your girlfriend's dad.
Yeah.
And that is like literalized in this in such a smart way.
Yeah.
It's very smartly done too. There's a lot of talk about Keaton's daughter, about Keaton having a family, you know, in all of that stuff. It starts with a drawing that his daughter did.
Oh, right.
So they're always keeping that in the back of your mind that he has a family, but you think it's sort of background character stuff.
Right.
And also it's preying on some biases, you know, that he doesn't look very much like Liz, but then when you see them together, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's all very smartly done.
Yeah, that moment really is just like kind of a whoa. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Holland plays that scene so good.
Yes, he does.
Talk about like levels of discomfort. because
Yeah.
he is a character who is uncomfortable for a lot of this movie. And to like figure out like when the discomfort is at a 6 and when it's at an 11,
Yeah,
like it is in that scene.
for sure. God, I love him like playing with the knife too.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Mhm.
yeah.
Just being casually threatening. Just accidentally
Just
threatening at
accidentally
first.
threatening. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's good. That's the movie. Wait, flop or bop?
Bob,
Yeah.
I love this movie. It's really good. I do think that it sort of kicks into it's like a really fun comedy for the first 2 acts
Uh-huh.
with some dramatic stuff. And then like truly the sort of like character arc emotional core is really in the last 40 minutes, I'd say.
Mm.
Really in the third act. But I love it all the way through. I think it's really well done. Emmett Flopper Bob.
I think it's a bop. I love his friend. I
Mhm.
love their love of Legos. As somebody
Mhm.
who also possesses the Star Wars, the Death Star Lego set,
Mhm.
I feel that. So, yeah, that's beautiful to behold. I like how they are layering in the MJ relationship without going heavy on it. I like that his first romantic interest is just this other girl,
Mhm.
and I like their chemistry a lot. I think that that's all very fun. It's like I think they get the high school part of this in a very fun way. Like the John Hughes sort of thing that you were talking about is like done in a very fun way. The parts of this that I think like drag for me are the parts that Tony Stark is in.
Hmm.
Just because I'm like, oh, it's like this. It's always this like played out thing where he's like messing with them and trying to like test them and stuff like this, and you're just like, well, I know this is tying into other stuff, but in this movie, it's a little extraneous, especially like there at the end. It's like another 5-6 minute scene at the end of this already 2 hour plus movie.
Mhm.
Because you're just like, oh, the suit, I just want to see the suit. I just want to see him like walk out in that suit. That's what we're waiting for.
Uh-huh.
Wow, it's super good.
I do like his and Tony's relationship. It really is setting up like a father-son sort of thing. And I think that makes a lot of sense for Tony, who kind of completes. I mean, this is mentioned in Civil War, but at the end of Iron Man 3, he retires from being Iron Man. And then it's like, okay, well, what do you do now? And so in Civil War, they're like, well, I couldn't do it, and it came back, and me and Pepper broke up. We see that they're back together by the time this movie.
That just like happened off screen, right?
Yeah, that just happened off screen. It's a fun little surprise when she walks through the door, since the last we heard they were broken up. But it makes sense that he needs something non-Iron Man related to be the catalyst for like the rest of his story, and getting sort of a son figure.
Right.
Yeah, and I like that Peter is sort of like starved for attention and just sort of always trying to be useful, and then at the end he makes the decision to give up that thing he has been craving for what he is already doing, and kind of felt that wasn't really that worthwhile. He sees the value in it. And I love that he thinks it's a test from Tony, but it wasn't. And Tony is like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah.
I love that.
That is incredible. And it's like, this is a Spider-Man who thinks globally and acts locally. This
Sure.
is like a legit dude Spider-Man. And also, like, can we talk about how clutch he came in doing all that stuff on just like basically a weekend from high school to go and basically kick Captain America's ass single-handedly, and then he comes back home and he's just like, well, that was awesome, and when do I get to do it again? And to be left on red for 4 months, unbelievable. That's unconscionable, Tony.
Yes.
Seriously.
I love the starting of this movie as his little home video that he made while he was away. And I love that it looks so silly when you see the Civil War fight from the other angle. Like, everyone just like sternly standing across from each other in the middle of this giant parking lot.
It is.
All of that stuff is so good.
Also, I just want to shout out a great part that I loved a couple of times. It cut to the student news. Hilarious.
With Betty Brant is one of them, who of course is the character who's like the secretary kind of for the Daily Bugle.
Oh, whoa.
The Raimi movies, the Elizabeth Banks character. She is the newscaster in this one. Betty Brant. I love that it is like a school for nerds,
Oh, yeah. It's all nerds, right?
What I love too is how they treat Flash in this movie
Yeah.
with Tony Revolori, as opposed to like the very violent, like jock
Yeah.
Flashes that we've seen in both of the last two series.
Uh-huh.
That in this one, he's like a rich kid who basically likes Peter. He's just kind of like bemused by him, you know?
Yeah. He's just like kind of a dick some of the time.
Like he calls him Penis Parker because it's funny, but he still like gives him a little spank in the hallway and he's like, let's go swimming.
I think the stuff with that character in future movies, not to spoil anything, but that's very funny.
Oh,
how
yeah.
that guy develops.
I love in this movie when he's like, actually, sir, it's my father's car, sir. So, and then it just cuts to him standing on the side of the road as Peter is driving off. Also, like, nothing is funnier to me in the world than Peter Parker in those big glasses, goggles, having no idea how to drive a car.
I like the suit, always just wanting to kill people dead.
Oh, yeah, that's very
There's
funny.
a bloodthirsty suit.
I love the AI in the suit. Karen, I think he calls her eventually. My favorite scene in the whole movie is when he's in the garage of damage control.
Uh-huh.
And he's just like killing time and he's talking to her, and we get this huge montage of him doing like 15 different things. And then he's like, how long has it been? She says 37 minutes.
Yeah.
I love all of that stuff.
Yeah, what would you do if you were locked in there overnight? It'd be terrible.
For 8 hours,
8 hours. You'd be bored as hell. All right, well, I see we have come to a part of the episode called F, Marry, Kill the Avengers.
Well, this is a game they play in this movie.
This is a game they play in this movie, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
I think that would happen in this world.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it happens in this real world already when they're not real. So it would absolutely happen if they were real. You know.
Mm.
What Avengers are we picking from here? Or is it up to my discretion?
For F, Marry, Kill.
Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming the F stands for Kiss. I have no idea.
Yes.
What it stands for. I don't know. It seems like they're playing with a Civil War roster here, right? Because that's when this takes place, and it kind of feels, which limits the options a lot.
Also, loving all these jokes about Steve being a war criminal.
I love Hannibal Buress as the Jim Carrey.
That's so funny. All right, so I'll put the question to you.
Okay.
It's going to be first round. It's the classic lineup. It's going to be Iron Man, Captain America, Thor. This is the big one.
Okay. No, this is a good one. Well, I think you'd marry Captain America because he has that steadfast devotion we see.
Uh-huh.
You would F Thor,
Uh-huh.
who in a couple of years is going to realize that he's very funny. Maybe he hasn't realized it yet, but he's going to cut his hair and realize that he's a very funny guy in Ragnarok.
Uh-huh.
And you'd have to kill Tony and put him out of his misery, although I'd feel much worse about that now, knowing that he has a son figure than I did a few years ago. So I don't know. What about you?
Okay. Oh, it's hard. It's not that hard. You marry Thor because he's literally a god. And then you become whatever the legal spouse of a god is, which I assume is cooler than whatever I am right now. And then on the side, because it would make him really mad, you kiss Captain America. And then you kill Tony because simply, not even to put him out of his misery, although I guess that would happen, but simply because it would bring you satisfaction. Especially after watching Civil War. Now, okay. Next rounds.
Oh boy. Okay.
I'm gonna do a little bit deeper cut here. Okay. We got Scarlet Witch. We've got Black Widow, and we have got our Green Goddess Gamora.
Oh wow. Well, of course, I know which one you're going to pick, considering the color of one of their skin is a iridescent green hue. Well, I would definitely marry Scarlet Witch, tends to work out horribly for anyone involved in any sort of familial relationship with her.
Uh-huh.
But that's a risk I'm willing to take, quite frankly. And hard to say. Black Widow and Gamora are both so violent, both so angry. And I don't think I would be I'm certain that I would be killed in an attempt to kill either of them instead. I guess I'm going to say F Black Widow to give her some love because I feel like she might not get any from other members of the team here. So, and kill Gamora. That would be my answer.
I say we got to kill Scarlet Witch because she's too powerful. She's the most powerful Avenger.
Okay.
And if she was ever like available, I think she would really kick ass. Unfortunately, I think she was making tea for the entirety of Civil War or something.
Yeah.
I know she could give you a house and a home, perhaps in an entirely imaginary dimension, but the risks are just too high.
And once again, it is a risk I'm willing to take.
I
would like that on the record.
I think I would kiss Black Widow for previously mentioned reasons of, really, you know what I'm saying. So we're just not even going to get into it. But I feel like she's around. No, okay, I will get into it. I feel like she is around a lot of really attractive people all the time.
Uh-huh.
And they all have like these weird dead girlfriends in the past. Or sometimes they are Hulk people who don't understand their feelings good. Or sometimes they are archers who are maybe your best friends. So maybe that would be weird. And then I would marry Gamora. The sweet space queen.
No surprise.
Of course. And get to rule at the left hand of Thanos.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Okay, now that we've thoroughly derailed ourselves.
That might be all the time we have for today.
What about the continuity corner in this one?
Okay. First of all, I want to say, when it says 8 years later, that's a lie. There's no way it could be 8 years after the Battle of New York, which takes place in 2012. It just doesn't work with the timeline.
Yes.
Marvel Studios, I think, put out like a book with an official timeline or something, basically saying that's a lie. So we're going to ignore that completely. We hear in this movie that Peter is 15 years old, and we hear that he is a sophomore. Okay. And in Civil War, which takes place in 2016, we hear that he has had his powers for 6 months. So what time of the year do we think this movie takes place? Do we think that movie is like the start of his sophomore year and this is later in the sophomore year?
Yes, maybe. This would be at the end of sophomore year, so it would be the following spring. Because it's homecoming, right? Or does homecoming happen in the...
See, our homecoming happened in the fall. Prom took place in the spring, basically.
I think it depends on what your sport is, does it not? But they're a nerd school, so they may not have a sport. But
they do have cheerleaders who we see in the hallway. So there is... Well, it could be, honestly, for like the academic decathlon or for some of those like, brainy sports. It could be something like that.
Yeah, so like chess or badminton.
And, here's a little clue. The movie ends with them electing a new team captain for Liz, who is a senior and is graduating, right?
Right.
And seems to be leaving a little bit before the year is over, but
towards the end of the year, it seems like.
So I would guess this is spring semester, sophomore year. Yeah.
Okay. How about any behind-the-scenes drama?
Okay, I've got 2 big things that I want to hit here. Very quickly. The first one, this is something I'm sad to say that once you see it, it is hard to unsee. And I was thinking about it a lot this watching, as I was every time since I've done it. So obviously the ages of the cast are much younger here. When you think about Toby and Andrew being like 27, 28 when they filmed their first movies. When they filmed this movie, Tom Holland was 20. I think he had just turned 20. Zendaya and Ned, Jacob Batalon, who plays Ned, were both 19. Pretty much all of the teen cast is around that 19-20 age. However, Laura Harrier, who plays Liz, was 26.
Yeah.
So she is much older. And I love that she is much taller, and I love that they focus on that. But I will say, like, once you kind of know that she is like a grown ass adult woman hanging out
Yeah.
with these kids, and you watch it, like you can tell. You can kind of tell that she is an adult and playing young versus the other ones who are basically playing, 3 years younger or whatever.
Yeah.
Just wanted, I lied. There are two more things after this I want to say. So we talked about Donald Glover. There was the fan cast for him to play Spider-Man. And then they invented in the comics the character Miles Morales, who is partially based on Donald Glover. Now, this version, even though it is Peter, is taking a lot from the Miles Morales comics, because Miles Morales goes to sort of like a private school, smart school, like Peter does in this movie. The personality of Ned and the look is taken from Miles' best friend in the comics, who is Gonke.
Okay.
The name Ned Leeds is like a Spider-Man character who's like another reporter at the Bugle, and he turns into a bad guy. It's like a very small Spider-Man character. But his whole relationship and personality and stuff is taken from Miles' best friend in the comics. So I want to shout all of that out. Now, Donald Glover is in this movie, and the character he plays is Aaron Davis, who we see in his little profile, a.k.a. the Prowler, who is the uncle of Miles Morales in the comics.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
Miles's whole thing is that his dad is a cop and his dad's brother is a criminal.
Yeah.
Who is the Prowler. And we see him in this movie and he says,
I got a nephew
in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
So a little hint in there. I just love that.
That is pretty cool.
The last thing, quickly, this is just funny. Hannibal Buress, who, as we said, plays the gym teacher in this movie, was unable to attend the premiere because he was filming Tag. So he tweeted that he would pay $500 to any Hannibal Buress lookalike with solid comedic timing who could attend the premiere. And some random guy, Joe Carroll, who lives in LA, who does not really look like Hannibal Buress, took him up on the offer, and he sent him his name tag and went to the premiere. And there's all this video of them announcing Hannibal Buress, and this random guy walks out.
That is awesome. That's a solid joke. Wow.
Love that. We love that. Okay, the villain report. And then I'll toss this to you first. We've got Michael Keaton as the Vulture, and then he's also got the Tinkerer, and two versions of the Shocker are his team. How do you feel about Michael Keaton in general? I feel like we haven't talked about him on this podcast before. And how do you feel about him as the Vulture?
I think Michael Keaton is an incredible actor. I just think he is one of those people who is putting in the work, and just every time he does something, when he does a movie like this, where he's doing some pretty silly stuff.
Hot dog.
I think he elevates this kind of movie, Not all good actors are good in schlocky movies. And I think he is, because he's just so solidly there. I like him as the villain of this movie. I think he is one of the most sympathetic villains in a Spider-Man movie, or maybe in any of these Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Especially because he's trying to commit a bloodless crime at the end, too.
Absolutely.
So.
I mean, he is selling weapons.
Yes.
To people who are
not a good guy, but yeah.
Yeah, and he makes the point, too, that is how Tony Stark got rich.
Exactly.
Before he got clean. I love him a lot, too. I have still never seen him as Batman, which I'm interested in, because I feel like all the movies I've seen him in that he's been incredible in the last 8-10 years are very different characters, very sort of regular guy characters,
Yeah.
But I love him in this. He's so good, especially at playing, as we said, all of the uncomfortable dad stuff. I love that he casually calls him Pedro instead of Peter. That feels very accurate.
Yeah.
Something a dad would do. And I love that he gives this very accurate speech about the class difference, and about how they're ground level guys, and we make the roads and we fight the wars for the upper crust, but we're not a part of their world. That stuff, first of all three of these Spider-Man movies are going to be a little bit real world political in a way that the rest of the MCU really isn't. I think that's John Watts's MO, is to slip a little bit of that into each of these movies. But also I love that that is his thing, but then he lives in a mansion. Do you know what I mean? And like we are
Mhm.
introduced to his house first before we know it's his house as like the most incredible, like high
Oh
tech,
yeah, it's the
amazing,
party house.
rich
Yeah.
neighborhood house, like so different from where Peter lives. Cut to him all the time being like, I got a family, I got kids, I got a
Oh yeah.
salt of the
Huh.
earth, keep these boys working. And then you're like, oh, but he lives in the rich house. Like,
Yeah.
I just think that stuff is all interesting
Oh, that is
and part of like the fun game this movie is playing, I guess.
yeah.
But I do think he's really good. I love the whole crew, but especially Bokeem Woodbine, who plays the second Shocker. He's a lot of fun when he's shows up with the stuff at the high school at the very end, and he's throwing around the school bus and all that.
Yeah. That is cool. Well, who's your MVP other than Peter?
Ooh, it's a tight race between two actors, but I think I will give it to Zendaya.
Mm.
Her character in this movie just feels so fresh. It feels like very modern
Mm-hmm.
high schooler, you know, even still today. I love that she's like in a Sylvia Plath t-shirt and she's like, I'm not going to walk into the Washington Monument
Yeah.
because it was built by slaves, you know, like all of that stuff. And like you mentioned, I was really surprised at how little she is in this movie. Like,
Yeah.
they are very slowly teasing it and sort of establishing her and Peter as friends before they become lovers, you know?
Yeah.
I love even that it is a twist that she is MJ in a certain sort of way at the end,
Yeah.
where they've called her Michelle the whole movie.
I really like their Harry, Ron, and Hermione sort of vibe that they've got going on. You know, that's what it reminds me of
That's a good call.
in a big way.
Who is your MVP? And I'll do a couple shout-outs.
I think it's got to be Ned.
Hell yeah.
He's so wonderful in this. Like his friendship with Peter, his like sticking up for him all the time, trying to like make them both cooler somehow.
I love his hats.
I love his hats.
Different hats.
I
he wears.
love that he thinks he's in the movie Superbad, and no one else does.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful.
Yes, I love Ned. I love when he says he was looking at porn at the end to cover up that he was flying a drone plane or whatever. He's great. I want to give a shout out to Donald Glover, who I also think is really good in this.
Oh yeah,
Playing like a very specific sort of nuanced take on like a movie thug, you know, like feels much more lived in than that part would be on the page.
For sure. I like the part where he says, "Don't try to upsell me." He's like just trying to. It seems like he's just trying to buy a gun, and they're like bringing out this alien tech, and he's like, "What? Why? Why would I need this?"
I love when Peter comes at him with like the crazy Batman voice, and he just is not intimidated at all. Oh, and he says, "I heard your voice. I know what a girl sounds like." He thinks that he's a girl the whole time.
So funny.
Oh, man.
All right. Well, Wade, do you have any final thoughts before we get to this grueling quiz that I've put together for you?
I think we've covered most of it. I just really love the energy of this movie. I think that he really gets Spider-Man right too, which we haven't talked about as much, but like all of the quippy stuff feels very true to the Spider-Man character. And yeah, I think it is interesting to me that like this and Ragnarok and Guardians of the Galaxy all strike me as being like the most watchable and the most rewarding in the MCU.
Yeah.
And they are kind of like straight up comedies, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes people will like give some slack to the MCU for having a lot of quips or not taking things as seriously. But I am also kind of like the ones that just go full comedy and are kind of just being funny. Then when the superhero moments come, they also like hit a little bit harder almost.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I love the moment where he's under the rubble. That's very emotionally affecting, right? Where you see him like actually have a panic attack and he's like, God, could someone please help me? And you're like, yeah, he's a 15-year-old kid. He's not Iron Man, you know?
No.
He's a 15-year-old kid trapped under some rocks and he's got to figure out what to do. Yeah, so love this movie. I mean, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it rules. It's very fun. I think there's a lot of very cool web slinging stuff going on here, especially the part with the boat that gets cut in half. Really cool moments.
Mm-hmm.
But again, about his failure, about him like giving it his all, and it says 98% effective, and it's gonna still sink anyway. And then Iron Man comes in and helps
And he's the one who grabs the weapon that cuts it in half. Like, they have the weapon, but he grabs it away from them, and then it activates and cuts the boat in half, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, about not understanding one's powers. All right, now on to Bums the Word. This is not going to be a regular old version of Bums the Word, though. This is going to be a kind of mix it up day in honor of the title of this movie. We are doing Green Day song title or action movie title. I'm going to read you two phrases. I'm going to read you a phrase, and you're going to have to sort it into one of two categories. We do that 10 times.
Okay. In a past life, I was a huge Green Day fan. I have not spent much time with them recently, but we'll see how much I retained.
Number 1, Man on Fire.
Oh, that is tough because in my head I was like, oh, it's both. I'm going to say action movie.
That is correct. It is an action movie.
It's a Denzel movie, I think.
I think it is.
Okay.
Nuclear Family.
I'm gonna say Green Day song.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Burnout.
That is a Green Day song. I'm pretty sure. That one I knew.
Yep, that's right. Black Rain.
Oh, it's bad, whatever it is. Whichever version it is, it's not a good one. Oh boy. I'm gonna say action movie.
That is correct.
Hell yeah.
Pulling Teeth.
Pulling Teeth, I believe, is a Green Day song.
That is correct.
Hell yeah.
All right. Just a couple more here. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you with one. Damn it. Hard Target.
Hard Target, I believe, is... I think it's a Green Day song.
That is incorrect. It's a Claude Van Damme movie from 1993. All right, we're going to have one more to close her out. The Grouch.
I think The Grouch is a Green Day song.
That is correct. Wow. Wade,
nice.
You're simply incredible. You have won the game. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody out there listening. In 4 weeks, we will be talking about Jordan Peele's Nope. Have you noticed that in films of this summer, people have been saying Nope a lot? It's because it's the summer of Nope, baby. And whatever is up there, it's coming for us. And we are coming for it in 4 weeks. Next week, though, we're going to be talking about Avengers Infinity War, a snappy little joint that we all love. Tune into that. And until then, stay frosted.
Cinema Bums is a production of DKG Podcasts. It is created and produced by Wade Lawrence Holloman and me, Emmett Temple. Wade also edits and mixes the podcast. Our theme music is by Zane Holloman, who you can find on Bandcamp, and our show art is by Autumn Beckner. Our social media is managed by Laura Bennett. If you like what you hear, please tell all your friends and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, the 2 best ways to spread the word about our work. You can also follow us on Instagram @CinemaBums or email us at cinemabumspod@gmail.com. Don't flake on us. We'll be back next week.